Welcome to the Play Space Live. Keith Avalone for Play Games. Sam will be getting behind the camera shortly as we get ready to launch our two new hobby standard friendly local game store games. Draft Duel, I'm reaching for it here. Draft Duel, the deck building, the football drafting card game. And then Myth Match, which is the deck building, bidding and bluffing card battle game. Upside. Well, there you go. There's the correct presentation of Myth Mash. We thought about what we might want to do for this show. We are excited about these games and hope you're as excited to get them on your game table as we are to get them on our game table. We thought about having some special in-studio guests to maybe play these games live in front of people. But we've already played them, so I mean that wouldn't really be anything, groundbreaking. But Sam had the idea of doing kind of a chronology of Myth Mash, which has been in the making for 5 years. The first version of Myth Mash appeared at PLAAY.con in 2019, and it was called Battle Spades back then. Maybe some of the folks in the chat room might remember it. It has gone through some pretty significant changes to get where it ended up, and we think it's an interesting journey. So Sam will be taking you on that journey, showing you through it here in just a bit. First of all, a couple of quick news notes. Had a great time in Utah at Utahtober. I want to thank everybody that showed up. The Boston Bruins won the Commissioner's Surprise Hockey Tournament for the third time. They're the three-time winners. No team has won it more than once, except for Boston, which has now won it 3 times. So congratulations to the Bruins. We had a good time with that. We played some football. We did the World Series pre-play on Friday night with the Padres coming out on top in our world. So it was a good time and a beautiful drive there. Great weather there and really fun to meet everybody. Thanks for making another great road trip event. We finally got the paperwork signed for PLAAY.con 2025. It will be June 26th, 27th, and 28th of next year at the Hilton Garden Inn, Highlands Ranch, same place we've had it the last couple of years. We're still waiting on the hotel room block discount code. Should have it shortly, and we'll be off and running on PLAAY.con 2025. 2025 is kind of shaping up to be the year of the sports game convention. If you're plugged into the community, you know that SD Patrick is doing a convention. SD Patrick and Sports Sim Magazine's IndyCon 2025 in April. And then Dave Gardner and the Digital to Dice podcast are holding their first convention in May in Connecticut. So we'll be getting behind those two events as well as our own convention. And of course, they'll be coming to ours too. So sports gamers, there are plenty of get-togethers happening in 2025, and no excuse not to get connected with everybody. We'll look forward to seeing it at one or more of these events. I'm going to quickly talk about Draft Duel. We've upgraded the components, also updated the players in the deck to reflect the off-season moves to new teams of some of the players. We did a stream on that a couple months ago, so I'm not going to rehash that. You can just go to the archived video here on the Play Games YouTube channel and look that over. The game mechanics are essentially the same as our holiday game. A couple of minor rules revisions and a little bit of streamlining, but essentially the same. Main thing is it's a full-fledged hobby game store game, and I think it's going to be as big a hit with the non-sports gamers as it was with the sports game folks back at Christmas time. So both those games are going to go live tonight, and now, without further ado, I think I'm going to switch chairs with Sam and let him show and tell you the story behind Myth Mash. So, Sam, why don't you walk on back here? I'll sit here until you get close so that the chair doesn't stay empty too long. And don't forget to talk into the microphone. People appreciate that.
Got it.
All right. Grab my little
Well, hello, everybody. Here we are, October 17th, one day before Myth Mash and Draft Duel launch. I'll let you know a little secret. They're actually out right now. You can go buy them on the website currently. The link is down there in the description, so if anything you see tonight looks interesting to you, Myth Mash or Draft Duel, those are both up officially. You can go run and grab them early even before our official scheduled launch tomorrow. So what are we doing here tonight? Well, like Keith said, we thought about a lot of different things, but the reality is that we've already covered this game pretty extensively on the channel. I think about as extensively as would be appropriate on the Play Games YouTube channel. And so I think, who wants to see another tabletop gameplay playthrough of Myth Mash? Didn't seem like that was really the most engaging content we could put together. So instead, I thought we would take a little stroll down memory lane, thinking about all the different iterations that Myth Mash has seen over the past 5 years. There have been quite a few, and probably I don't think there's anybody out there who has seen all of them. So there will be something new in this stream for even the most plugged-in Myth Mash fans. So I guess that sets it up pretty well. Without further ado, why don't we? I guess I should have told you how to go to the game table. All right, so on the screen to your right, there's going to be, that box, the scenes box, game table. Should we just click on that?
Table cam?
Table cam, yeah. Click. Okay, we've got sound again. One second. Hey, everybody. So sorry about that. I guess we haven't had sound for the past 5 minutes or so, and I've just kind of been rambling here. I guess I will pick up where I left off, and we'll go in and maybe edit that down later and figure out how to get that out of there. But for those of you that did stick with us, thank you for sticking with us through our technical difficulties. We're going to pick it back up right now. So, story of Myth Mash. The cards that you see in front of me here now are for a game called Battle Spades. It was the origin of Myth Mash. First played at Play.con 2019. Honestly, if you sat me down in a chair and told me to teach you how to play this game right now, or even just play it myself, I probably would not be able to. It's the idea for it was, I remember I wanted to play a game of spades, but better. Originally, it was called Better Spades, not even Battle Spades. Battle Spades sort of evolved afterwards as, there were some like card battling mechanics that got inserted into it. But the original idea was just, what if we took the game of spades, one of my favorite games, played a lot of spades growing up, and just added things to it. So things like, what if the cards had effects? What if the same suit wasn't trump every time? What if there were more than 4 suits? All kinds of things like that. What if you earned currency that you could use to buy upgrades for your cards over the course of the game? Really, all kinds of wild ideas were introduced in Battle Spades. You can see here there's sort of a score sheet for it, where you would mark down, I think with a pawn, your bid, and then where your spoils are at. Spoils are that currency that I'm talking about, and then also your honor. I think honor was one way, like the main loss condition. And this was kind of a flaw with the game, is that there wasn't really a win condition. There was only loss conditions for each of the players. You had to be the last player standing. And so your honor would drop every time that you missed or had an over trick, I think. Every time you missed your bid. And so, yeah, this is slowly coming back to me as I'm talking about it now. But again, I really don't remember too much about it. Anyways, what I do remember is playing this with names that you might recognize, like Paul Salzgeber, James Cast, Cooper Gilbert, and many others. Steve Heller, I'm sure, played it. Fond memories of playing Battle Spades at the very first, I guess it was the second Play.con in 2019. So from there, we took a small step up and did gain the name that would eventually become the final title of the game, Mythmash. So this is true Mythmash version 1. As you can see, the suits remain. It was still a game of, there were suits, and I had this idea that, maybe they should be strong and weak against one another, like a big game of rock, paper, scissors. So that was the main thing that was added here. There's also the game was broken up. I broke the game up into 2 phases. There was an influence phase where you would bid cards from your hand on heroes. You would flip over a hero, and everybody would bid cards from their hand to gain that hero. And then there was a Mythmash phase where the heroes that you had won over the course of the influence phase would sort of fight against your opponent's heroes, and whoever had the better heroes would win. And there was all kinds of strategy around, which cards do I have in my hand? What do I want to bid? I think the cards were worth more if you bid to the correct suit. So there was like, these are blue influence cards, and there's some blue heroes in here. And so if you bid these on the blue heroes, they'd be worth more. But also the blue hero, you can look at this card, it's going to be weak to green heroes and strong against purple heroes. So if your opponent has a bunch of green heroes, maybe it's not smart to bid on the blue heroes, even if you have a handful of blue cards. So those were kind of the lines of strategy that I was trying to work off of. At this stage, it was still a multiplayer game, but the real breakthrough that we hit with this was that, what if it wasn't multiplayer? What if it was, what if it wasn't 4-player, 3 or 4-player? What if it was just 2-player head-to-head? So we started playing this version of it. We were really stuck with it. It was not very much fun to play with 3 or 4 people. But we started playing it head-to-head, and it was kind of clicking. There were some things that were going well. There were some small speckles of fun along the way, and that was kind of the spark that we got from this version of the game. So working off of that, we moved on to the next one, which I will show here. And I don't know that anybody in the community probably has even seen this, because this happened between 2019 and 2021 when our next convention was. This was kind of a this was like a COVID era thing that I was working on, I guess. Well, the next one was actually the next version. Keith says off to the side that this is the basis for Red, White, and Blue Turbo. That is true. Mythmash did inspire Red, White, and Blue Turbo, but it was actually the next version that we're about to look at. I'll get it out right now, and you'll actually see how it inspired Red, White, and Blue Turbo, because there's quite a few similarities. And not to mention the card size is exactly the same as Red, White, and Blue Turbo. But anyways, I don't know that anybody has really seen this version before. There's probably a exclusive look at the middle stages of Mythmash between the version that you played at 2019 Play.con perhaps, and now this version that I think was on display at Play.con 2021.
I think you're right.
So what is going on here? You'll see that the factions, the rock, paper, scissors element is still alive and well. The suits have changed. There's only 4 of them now. And they're no longer static on a card like this. The idea was that you were going to sort of shuffle these up and not knowing what they were, and then put them like this in sort of a circle, and then they were going to point to each other to tell you which ones were weak to which. So it's a different mix each game is the idea. No 2 games are the same because the suits are always strong and weak to different ones across the game. So, but the things that are similar here are that you did have the influence cards still. It was broken up into 2 rounds still, where you would bid cards from this deck. You'd get dealt, I think, a random hand of cards from this deck, which is, maybe a little unfair because there's some 1s, some 2s, some 3s. I guess the idea is that it would all balance out eventually. But you had these cards that you would then use to bid on these cards, and what these cards would do is you would sort of set them up. If you've played Red and Blue Turbo, this will be very familiar to you. You would sort of set them up face down. You'd choose an arrangement of them. You set them up face down, and then you would just flip them. And then your opponent would flip theirs, and then you would resolve them. So there's some strengths and weaknesses. The cards have attack and defense. I think that's what that is. And then effects sometimes as well, where, like, I guess this guy gives the next hero 2 damage, so this guy would have 2 extra damage on him. So he'd be a huge guy. It'd be a 6 power big dragon. So the art kind of came a long way in this stage of the game. Sort of found my footing as far as the visual style of what I wanted Mythmash to be. You can see here's some of the characters. I'll just kind of spread them all out for you. So yeah, that was Mythmash, I guess version 3. Mythmash proper version 2, if we're not counting Battle Spades. And then that sort of gave way to this next version that I've got here. And I'll tell you, I don't really remember this version that well. As I was digging through my computer earlier today, trying to gather up all the different versions, I stumbled across this one. I was like, wait a minute, what is this? I don't even remember this, but it is sort of, from what I can tell, I think the first time that we landed on the core gameplay loop that would eventually find its way into the final version of Mythmash. So no longer are you bidding on cards to then play a separate segment of the game where they're going to battle each other. Now it's all mixed together. So the starter cards are here. This is present in the final version as well. There were some 3s mixed in this version, which you will not find in the printed version of Mythmash. You see there's some 1s, some 2s, some 3s. I think the idea was that both players got the same starting hand with this, which is, again, how it is in Mythmash currently. And then there are treasure cards separated into 1s. I see some 5s here. There's probably other denominations as well. Yeah, 3s, 4s, yeah. 2s, sure. So it's all here. The heroes are mixed in with them, and you're going to play these cards to bid on the heroes. Again, I don't remember exactly how this is set up, but you're starting to see some abilities that find their way into the base game. Like put a card from your discard pile into your hand. I'm pretty sure that's in there. Play +2 power if you lost the last battle. We've got some stuff like that in there. Anyways, so you're starting to, with this version, get to the final product that I've got off to my side here. This was definitely a big step towards what it would ultimately become. And then after that, you'll see we go back to the smaller card size. I'm not sure why I went up to full playing card size for one version and then back down to mint tin size for this version. But this is really where it started to all come together. A lot of these cards have the same names as the cards that are in base Myth Mash. The treasure is the same amounts that are in the base. Well, I guess these are 4 instead of 5. But we've got some 2s, some 3s, and some 4s. I guess they've all gone up by 1. So it's 3, 4, and 5 in the base game. But the names of the treasures are the same. We've got gemstones. We've got mythic shards. Some of the same characters are in here. Like here's Ulrock the Destroyer in his full AI art glory. And there's Dawn Knight Lonzo. Bone Steed is called Outrider now, but it's the same idea. Alice is in there. So really a lot of these ended up being the actual characters that got put into the final game. And the gameplay is very similar to a couple key differences. There's a lot more draw power in this version of the game, a lot of ways to draw cards into your hand on the abilities. Like Alice actually has a power where you're going to draw a card, and then all of the other cards you played also get 1 power. She's significantly nerfed in the final version. She no longer draws a card. She has 1 power instead of 2, and says all of your other cards get +1 power. So it took a lot of the draw power out of the game. It was starting to feel like that's really what it came down to, is who can draw the most cards. Because really every time you're drawing a card, it's like an extra card you get to play later on in the round. And in a game like Myth Mash, that's incredibly strong. There's also, you'll note, no summoner in the starting cards. I think there's also a different number of starting cards, or maybe it's just a different distribution. I see 4 soldiers and 3 knights. Yeah, so there's 7 cards, 4 soldiers and 3 knights. The same number of cards. In the final version, one of the soldiers gets swapped out for the summoner card, which is sort of the wild card that gets thrown in there, and it keeps things interesting in the first few rounds. So that is really the last prototype version of Myth Mash before we reach this. Now, some of you probably have this. I sold a few copies at the last Play.con 2023, or 24 Play.con. What am I talking about? It's 2024. And the cards in here are identical. I guess I could crack it open. There's no reason not to. I can always reshrink grab it later. Unless it's kind of being a pain, and then I won't bother with it. Give me... If I don't have it open in 10 seconds, we're going to move on. No, I think it's just not going to happen. That's fine. There's not that much to look at in here. Really, the cards are mostly identical. Sorry to make you watch me struggle through that for a minute. The card backs are different. All right, well, Keith has a knife now. He's going to crack it open. We'll have a look, I guess. Why not? Might as well. But you'll notice even the cover art is the same. Or very similar, at least, to the final version. It's got this nice little sleeve on there. The card backs are different. It's got the characters, like a illustration with all of the characters on it, on the back of the cards. I changed that because I want to do expansions. Hopefully this is not the last version of Myth Mash. I want to do many expansions for this game in the future, one of which I'm already planning out, and if you watch my Twitch streams, you've probably seen it in action actually already. But yeah, here we go. So we've got the mashups in here. You know what? This was actually another thing that was not present in this last version that we looked at, was the mashups. This was kind of the final ingredient that got added to the game. I think because we were finding it to be too one-sided. We needed to come up with some kind of catch-up mechanic that didn't, punish players too much for getting ahead. And the mashup is kind of, that was my aha moment. So once we started playing with that, it was like, man, this really is fun. We're onto something here. So yeah, here's all the characters. These are, this is what's in the base game. Some of the text is a little bit different. The card design is slightly different. And I'm trying to think if anything else is different. I kind of don't think so. The summoners here, as we were mentioning before, the starter cards are 3 soldiers, 3 knights, and a summoner. And yeah, that's really that. I mean, I'll leave this out for when we look at the final version here because of how similar it is. But you can see it's just much bigger, much bigger box. So this is what we've got now. And I'll crack this open so we can have a nice look inside. Here's our rules booklet. Big upgrade on the rules booklet, obviously. Black and white print in this version. Unfolds. Although I do think this is kind of cool, actually. Very compact. Didn't get to explain everything in as much detail as I would like to in that version of the rules. This is much more thorough, as you can see by, just clearly much more room for text. So there's kind of what that looks like. Set it off to the side here. We've got tokens now. The tokens are big, so you don't have to remember how much power got added to some of your guys now. You can just plop a nice little +1, +2 on there. Humbled, weakened, that's all here. All your token needs covered with that little punch-out board there. And then here, of course, the star of the show, the cards. We'll compare and contrast here. Similar color palette. Similar logo, kind of a little bit of an angle here. But you'll notice no characters here. So perfect for expansions, which are on its way. But even just like looking through this, you can tell very similar to what we saw. Similar in content, at least. The quality of these cards, I will say, is much, much higher than the quality of these cards here. Let's see if we can get a 1-to-1. No, we don't need to do that. That's fine. Well, sure. Why not? Let's get a soldier out. Let's have a quick look at the soldier. And you'll see what I mean, even just the print quality. Yeah, it's probably going to be hard to tell on camera. I'll hold them up. But you can tell that, I can tell at least from this distance, that the print quality on this is just much crisper. The image is at a much higher DPI. The color correction is right where we want it to be. And also, this text box is a little different. There's a little bit of flavor text in there now, so just this big blank open space. So anyways, that's really the key differences there between the last version and this version. Really the main upgrade here is the component quality. But I would venture a guess that a lot of you don't even have this version of the game, because if you weren't at PLAAY.con 2024, there was no place really that you could have gotten it. So, but it is available now. It is fully on our website. They are, you can get it actually at both PLAAY.com or spicy.com, SP1CY.com.
Why don't you talk briefly about the AI art versus, the art that you had?
Oh.
I think that's interesting.
Okay, Keith says I should talk about
Just quickly.
AI art versus the illustrations that I ended up with. This is sort of a hot topic in the board game world right now, really in a lot of industries that use illustration. There's a big push for, as AI art gets better and better. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the progress that's being made here, but it's even from these images that were created in what would this be? 2022 probably. 2023 maybe even. The quality of these images is rudimentary compared to what AI is able to whip up these days. And, with the explosive progress that's being made, there's a lot of people, lobbying for real artists to continue to be involved in the artistic process. I think that's just going to happen naturally. You put side by side the images on these cards and then the final illustration images, and there's just such a difference in style. You can tell that there's like heart and passion put into these illustrations.
Make sure they know that you used an artist for that.
Oh yeah, if it's not immediately obvious, yes, these are illustrated by a real artist. So I worked with an artist to create these illustrations. I used AI to create the concept art that these illustrations were based off of. In fact, some of the card images ended up being I ended up submitting in my like concept art document that I sent to this guy, and so you'll see some of them even look similar to their counterparts in this deck. Like Alice, for example, is a good example. If we can pull that up, Scarlet as well. Yeah, let's do Scarlet actually. Let's see if we can find Scarlet in here. There's Dana. If we want to look at that too. But anyway, while I'm looking at this, here's Scarlet. You can see she's got her dagger still. She's got her blue hair still. She's got sort of a red cape going on. But, I mean, you just talk about the difference in, like, it's hard to put a word, it's hard to describe it with a word, but you can just kind of look at this and tell that somebody drew this, as opposed to you look at this and something about, I mean, it looks illustrated, but something about it just seems a little cold, I think. Anyways, I know lots of people have opinions on this topic, and you know, it's such a fresh topic that I don't want to commit too hard to one side or another. But for the time being, I think, you know, I mean, certainly at all stages of the process, real artists need to be involved in the artistic process. And I think, you know, even if AI does ever get to a point where it can just totally replicate what a human can do, which I don't think will happen, but even if it does, I think it's still good for artists to have jobs, and so I plan on, you know, using an artist for each of my Mythmash expansions going forward. Probably the same artist, because come on, how cool is this? Yeah, so that's kind of my spiel on AI. I don't know. I could go into it a lot more. I do have a lot of thoughts, and I do go into it quite frequently on my Twitch stream. So if this is interesting to you, feel free to tune in there and hear me rant about it endlessly. But yeah, I think for today that'll about wrap us up. And yeah, I think that's all I got, guys. So thanks for watching tonight. Keith is going to come back in here and close us out, I think. But yeah, like I said, available now. Studio Spicy, sp1cy.com or play.com. That's play with 2 A's, by the way. Just like spicy.com has sort of a thing that you have to remember how to spell in it. Yeah, available both places. Buy it wherever you want. Ships out tomorrow. It's really nice. You're going to love it. Great price point, too, I might add. We had a tough time figuring out what to sell these for. But we landed ultimately at, I think, a price that you and your wallet will both enjoy. So, yeah, that's all I've got for you. I'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow on my Twitch stream if you're looking for more Sam content. But otherwise, I'll see you around the play sphere, I suppose. So, thanks.
All right, I'm back. I think the whole AI discussion is interesting because AI is such a, you know, it seems to be just expanding in so many different areas of our lives these days, and you know, it makes things easier, but you know, there's a downside to it as well. There's an upside and a downside, so it's interesting. I thought I wanted to make sure Sam brought that up. Thank you for watching. As Sam said, we appreciate you being here. Both games are now live. Next week, we're going to have a special wrestling show for our annual All Hallows Eve stream with Steve Tower. We're doing it a week early because Halloween actually falls on a Thursday night, and of course, Steve's got his kids, and you know, probably the dog will be barking at the front door all through our stream as kids come and trick or treat here. So it'd just be easier not to do it on Halloween Eve. We're going to do it the week before. So All Hallows Eve will be a week ahead of time next Thursday night here on the Play Space. We will debut the new Wrestling America Federation 2025 Stars cards and a new rival federation, which we'll reveal to you. There'll be some familiar names and faces in that new federation. This is all a product of our Commissioner's Edict show. So if you want to, dial back a couple months and watch that, you'll get where we're going with this, with our new rival federation, and also a new Face to the Mat freebie, which we will feature on the show, and then you can download it for yourself and try it out on your game table. So that'll be a lot of fun. Must-see streaming next week right here in the Play Space. Till then, have a great weekend. Hope you spend time with folks you love, And again, thanks for spending time with us tonight. We love you as well, and we appreciate you being here very, very much. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us tonight, and we'll see you again next week. Can't wait to see you for some wrestling action here on the Play Games YouTube channel.